Where would you like to start today?
Tell me a little bit about why and how, all the important things.
I work with individuals, couples, no matter how much relationships. You need to come on word vomit so I can understand. Okay, how is your mind connecting to things? How is your body reacting when you tell your story? I also like to be a little bit more practical. Yes, we can understand it, but at the same time, do you want to do something about it? So a lot of it is managing stress, communication, especially in long-term relationships. How do we spice things up after a very long time and things like that? Parenting and then having to switch to being in a sexy contest. All of a sudden, we switch from being clean dishes to okay, we try to do something now. I'm also trained in yoga and sometimes I teach yoga. And I mean, to me, it's all the same, but you won't know that I'm a sex counselor. I'm not mentioning it, but it's like a lot of hip opening and take a deep breath, checking with your body. So sometimes they come together and sometimes not as much. To me, they are together, but not in a very explicit.
Okay. So your work has a lot to do with sexuality and expression of sexuality and relationships, sexual relationships. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. How cool. Man, I don't think I've actually met somebody that actually works in that field. That's very cool. What led you to it?
I feel like once you're there, when you go back to see all the little crumbs in the story of growing up, I was, pushing back on certain ideas. I'm Puerto Rican. Growing up, I was always pushing back on that. I had my first boyfriend when I was 5 years old. I mean, obviously back then I had no idea what real life was gonna look like. But long-term sustained interest. I joke that I don't know if you are familiar with the movie Meet the Fockers.
Hmm.
They get to his mother's house. She's like teaching yoga to old couples with adaptive devices. I joke that I wanted to be her when I grow up. So I was working in private practice and looking for, okay, what can I do now? I couldn't enroll. My long term was to become a psychologist, but I started reading up on sexuality specifically. And I ended up enrolling in the program and finding out that the person who wrote the book that made me look into it was part of the staff and one of the trainers there. So we're like, oh, it was meant to be. My bachelor's degree, my long term was to work with kids. But then I realized, well, if you're going to work with kids, you really have to work with parents. And then having my own relationship, I started looking into, okay, what is happening? Solving my own problems. What are we doing right now? Why do we keep getting stuck, coming back to the same things over and over? And so that led me to understand a little bit better couples work, and then eventually ended up entering into sexuality itself. But I have been already researching yoga and applications to healing trauma. So it all came full circle.
So you're a PhD and you were in the PhD in the field of psychology, and then you kind of took a detour, or no?
No, I have a master's in educational psychology because the area where I wanted to be was in like policy making and designing programs themselves. I did a PhD in clinical sexology. I don't hold a license. I don't diagnose. It's very solution focused. What's happening here now? What can we do moving forward? I call my clients a regulated-ish. So they're able to carry on with their life. They just need a little bit extra support and maybe a bit of accountability or planning for, okay, how are you going to take care of yourself this week? Because you already know that this difficult thing is coming on Thursday.
Clinical sexologist. Is that the name? Wow, very cool. What'd you say?
I just say sex counselor because it's way easier.
Okay, that's really cool. I think everybody needs one, especially if you're in a long-term relationship, because then you get into habit patterns and it's kind of hard to break out of it. Virtual practice, cash pay, I'm guessing, or insurance, cash pay. How much is it per session? I'm just curious to learn, or referrals and stuff.
I don't take insurance and it's not eligible at all for reimbursement because I don't offer diagnosis. My rate is 175 per session, but I do offer a sliding scale down to 90 per session. I try to keep it as open as possible as long as I can, but it really depends on how many people I have, what are we working with, what's happening in life. Still trying to figure how to help clients understand what that is and how to take advantage of it without taking advantage of me.
I know what you mean. Okay. Okay, so I think that's super helpful. What are some of the top three kind of patients or clients that you would think would benefit the most? For me, I have PCOS and perimenopause, a few others. What are some of your top areas that you feel like the patients have been like, wow, this has been life-changing?
My favorite thing to work with is people who are wondering, do I not like sex or I just don't like the sex I'm having? Sometimes we pathologize ourselves like there's a problem with me when really it's your context. If you're super stressed, I mean, the world may be going crazy, your household may be a lot, or the sex is just boring and it's just repetitive or whatever it is, it's normal to not want sex that is bad for you. Getting into reclaiming pleasure, familiarizing yourself with what pleasure means in your body. I help people take a step back and explore what pleasure means outside of not just sex, but going out and being in the sun can be pleasurable, or holding on to your pee for a long time and then finally going to the bathroom can be very pleasurable because they're releasing. I helping people connect with that. People who are open to, I'm not very woo-woo, but I'm a visual person. So when you're telling me the story, maybe like I can have an image. Oh, when you're saying this is what I picture. I'm not super directive because I don't have the solution. I can give you ideas.
Yeah.
People who talk a lot are my people. I don't have to pull out the questions. I can just give you the right question to get you somewhere, to open up a door. Whoever is looking for a solution, that's not something I have. So it's people who are open to trying out new things. Trying out new things can be just talking to somebody, right? For a lot of people, that's a big step. People in long-term relationships, I do have a few who are not in a long-term relationship. I'm not even dating. Sometimes the reason why they may start may be, oh, I'm watching porn and I wouldn't want to watch this much porn. I don't pathologize it being a bad thing. The problem is when you feel like it's not your control, like you're not deciding. But then things just develop, right? Maybe that was a priority at some point. Now we're focusing on other things because you learn that stress is a big trigger for you. So you deal with, okay, what do we need to do? You're not eating well. Okay, I don't advise on nutrition, but are you eating something? If they do need something more, I will send them to a nutritionist. If your hormones are out of whack, there's nothing I can do other than be here for you. You need to go to your physician and do your hormone stuff and all that. But sometimes people need the talk before they're able to take that next step and look into medication or look into whatever they need to. It's a little bit of everything within that realm of sex and what's around it. So what's your context? What does your day-to-day look like? Spicing things up, anything that's kink BDSM starter, people who are just starting and still working through that sexual shame. I found that a lot of people who you may see this, who experience chronic pain and have hold on to it for a very long time. They have a very difficult time reframing their body to connecting with their sexuality. If you can pay attention to your body, it's hard to enjoy it because if I pay attention, it hurts. Even when treatment is working, then the body's still like, no, but I remember this hurt. So helping people with actually keeping to treatment, doing their exercises or doing whatever their physician sent, it develops into what are your goals for this week? What are we seeking progress in rather than here's an easy fix, just do this and problem solve. I feel like that is when you look for advice and stuff. If you randomly Google, oh, we'll solve your sex life with a toy. Or would you doing this? But like you need to look inside first. Like there's some I'm all for toys, but there's a reason why it's there. And the toy can be a really helpful tool, but you can have the toy and say, you know what, I'm very overwhelmed. This trigger me, I can do this. I meet people where they are. It's always starts with sex or relationships. Like that's our starting point.
I have people that going through perimenopause and menopause is a hard enough transition. They've kind of already come from a place of like hurts. Now they have hormones, but they're like, I don't know what to do with these things. I think that's a very helpful adjunct to my clinical practice. Now the struggle is to get people to talk about it. Unless during one session, I'm trying to cover, I don't have 30-minute sessions. I only have 1-hour sessions with my patients in functional medicine. Even then, we always go into social parts, work, home life, hobbies, and what brings pleasure, what brings joy. But people never volunteer that sex information. It's like the last thing. Men, unless they have erectile dysfunction, then that's the only thing they'll talk about. I hear you. That's a very important piece. So my practice, I'm board certified internal medicine, infectious disease, and functional medicine. The reason I started my practice is I noticed I really was not meeting people where they were with the insurance-based practice. My clinic membership is $77 a month. I've tried to keep it affordable. The testing is what that gets really expensive. Everybody gets food sensitivity testing. If you're bloated, you're crampy, we're not saying you need hormones first. We make sure that you're digesting, you're detoxifying, basic functions. Everybody gets a gut testing of their microbiome, their metabolites in the gut, what foods sit with them and what foods don't. That's a foundational piece of information. Then on top of that foundation, we put the hormones, right? Then on top of that, we put the thyroid, adrenal, and the pancreas. It's kind of, look at that. Oh, that was adorable. So it's kind of like a pyramid. The foundation of the pyramid is the gut health, and on top of it is your energy axis, your thyroid, your pancreas, and adrenals. If those are not optimized, you don't have energy. You're like, by 2 o'clock, you're crashing. And if you don't have energy, you're not touching another person. On top of it is the sex hormone. So that's how I work through. I really try to focus on reversing diseases as much as not too much into like trying to keep people on supplements. I want them to reverse it, especially if they're in their 40s and 50s, especially prediabetes, cholesterol, all these things are reversible. It's the inflammation that's driving all of these chronic diseases. That's pretty much my practice. I'm huge into embodiment practices. I feel like our society, there are like the two major categories. One is we live in our head constantly, right? We're not connected to the body. So if my patients are truly embodied, a lot of their diseases can go away, but they're not there, they're here. And I'm guilty too. I always check for my patients with anxiety and depression is to check their genetic markers to see if they can get rid of some of the stress hormones, right? If you generate a lot of stress hormones and you don't have the enzymes to clean it up, you're gonna have anxiety. Like that's, if you have that kind of genetic snip, then what can we do to make sure you go up in the morning and then you come down and so I do a lot of that. Embodiment practices, genetics around anxiety, depression, insomnia, and then the other piece is constant distraction, right? Like focused attention is the rarest thing. Without focused attention, you can't truly find joy. Those are like my big pillars other than gut health and hormones is embodiment and focused attention practices. And meditation is not for everybody. Like movement practices that are yoga, biking, whatever it is, you have to be focused attention. That's pretty much my practice. We're a small practice. We're growing very fast, faster than I would like. My patients, they go around. My first round of patients were small, like 20 people. Then they all started feeling better. Now they've told 4 people, so now they're bringing people that have been ill for like 20 years. And I'm like, we're doing our best, but it takes a lot of time and energy. We're growing very
It's
fast.
a little bit of a good problem to have, though.
It is. It definitely is. We're going. I still do my best to stay on social media because I find all these girls are looking for help. Like the other day, I had a patient who has leg cramps for 10 years. And I started on magnesium glycinate and her cramps disappeared. 10 years she has suffered with leg cramps. She just was tearful. She's like, I can't believe, I find these patients asking questions on social media. They're like, I want hormones. And I'm like, yes, you do. But is your thyroid, is your adrenal, is your gut? Like, you can give hormones, but that's not
Why
what.
why is there a need for it?
Yeah. And then all hormones rev you up. But if you don't have enough energy to rev up, it's just frustrating. You will rev up. The first 2 months, the hormones will rev up. They'll take up and they'll rev you up. But then you're back to like, so anyways, I appreciate your support. I know I've seen you. I really appreciate it. I do a lot of those PCOS, anxiety, insomnia, depression, weight loss. I think those are probably my biggest ones. Perimenopause, menopause. Overall, people feel better and
I just want to circle back. You said when you don't have energy, you don't want to touch another person. Most people, especially a couple who is busy, independently of if they have children or not, usually they leave their time together for the end of the day when everybody's tired.
yeah, Tell me about it. I know. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I have three kids. Now with my partner, I'm like, okay, we're gonna go on lunch dates. Our intimate time is 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, not at 11:30 at night. Oh, yeah, no, I hear you. Absolutely.
Can you tell me more about what you explained about the enzymes cleaning it out? How does that work?
When you wake up, right, the cortisol goes up, shoots up in the morning. That is our get up and go hormone. That's what gives you the la 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 in the morning. I'm gonna go do things. As day progresses, it's supposed to come down like this, not like this. It goes up and it's supposed to come down slowly. So towards like 9, 10, you're like, ready because cortisol goes down, GABA, melatonin goes up. That's a normal rhythm. Because of the society we are in now, a lot of people shoot up through the roof in the morning, okay, then stay up there all day, can't come down. That's category one. That's a normal response to stress. If you're in like, I have a deadline this week, that's normal. Now, if it's 6 months and you're still doing that, right, that's going to be ending up in trouble. What happens, your body kind of gets a signal that, okay, this stress is not going down anytime soon. Okay, we're going to decrease the receptors that the cortisol is acting on so rest of the organs don't get damaged. Your body says, oof, I don't care about the cortisol anymore. Starting to get tired because it needs to rest. Okay, that's your body's mechanism of saying we don't care for cortisol. And eventually, the body learns that that much cortisol is of no use to me. I'm just not going to make that much cortisol because the tissues don't care. Why should I care? You're now running on a flattened curve. That's a flat cortisol curve. That is never good news. That means we have to do a lot of work to get you to back to the normal curve. That's one type of people. The second type of people, I have this mutation, and there's a lot of people, ethnic people have a lot of this mutation, is once I go up, right, the enzyme that is needed to bring it down, 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 down in my body, if you have 90%, I have 10% of it. So even if I make 10 milligrams of cortisol in the morning, for me to come down takes twice as long as it takes. It's like people who like coffee. If you're the kind of person who can drink coffee and go to bed, nothing happens to you, right? You don't have any problems with cortisol. I'm the kind of person I could smell coffee and I'm like, shaky, shaky. Right? I know now this about me because I did the testing. I know my super brain time is this time in the morning. And then I know around like 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm going to have to intentionally bring it down because I have a very stressful, I go from patient to patient to patient. My brain is hyper vigilant throughout the day, but around 3 or 4 o'clock, I have to have my little reishi mushroom called chocolate to increase the GABA in my brain so my body has time to excrete the cortisol. Normally, most physicians would be saying, I have anxiety because then I can't sleep. Right? Before I knew this about myself, I thought I had anxiety and I took anti-anxiety meds and ended up with a lot of side effects. And then once I realized this about myself, now I know why I'm that way, what gives me my super brain in the morning, and what is it that just keeps me up at night. So I am very conscientious about having a ritual, and now I sleep great. I can use it as my superpower instead of it being a disease. The enzyme is called COMT, catecholamine O-methyltransferase. It's used in detoxifying cortisol, detoxifying hormones, same thing. Detoxifying coffee is the same. That's called the warrior gene.
That's very interesting. I have always been the other way around. Like my mom was always an early bird. I don't know exactly why. I've always been the other way around. Like, since I can remember, very slow and groggy in the morning, and then once everybody's going down, we're like, yeah, let's go. And now I'm so interested in what will my genes say? What's the explanation behind it? But that is something that I talk a lot with my clients. Independent of what diagnosis somebody else put on,
yeah. There's a lot of labeling.
You know the rhythm. Where do you know how to take care of yourself when you're in your lows? Do you know how to take advantage when you're in your high energy period? Can you see it? Can you already plan for it? Because if you understand your rhythm, then you can build a life that works for you rather than feel like it's not working, it's not working. Yeah, it's not working because your context is not helping you.
Yeah, that's so important. So important to know your rhythm. That's a very beautiful way of saying it. That's cortisol rhythm as well. Every person is different. Every person has their own like unique signatures of how they go up and down, what affects it, you know. And I think the last US survey on magnesium was that 70% of the US population is low in magnesium because our topsoil is so eroded. A lot of people not getting enough magnesium. And where is magnesium present? In the green leafy vegetables. And in our sad standard American diet, there's just not much colors there. The current recommendation for vascular well-being, blood vessels, cholesterol, all those things, is 6 to 8 servings of spinach or vegetables per day. That's where you get your magnesium from. The reason I say this is when we supplement patients with magnesium that they're missing for so long, they finally get deep sleep. They finally notice that their muscles don't cramp and they wake up with like lower blood pressures in the morning. It's amazing. If you think that I know my rhythm and I'm noticing it's changing, you know, then what is causing that change? Is it minerals? Is it lack of enzymes? Is it genetics, toxins, food? There's so many variables. I tell my patients there are things you can control and the things you can't control. Our job is here. In the things that you can control, we're going to do our best here. And then we're going to be cognizant that there are things that you can't control, you know? So, yeah.
What does that embodiment work looks like with you?
I think recognition is probably the hardest part. As a society, we've gotten so used to being rewarded for being up here that recognition that we're disconnected comes very late. If it comes almost at a time when our bodies are not working as they were, you know, they used to, the joints don't work, you know, that's when you're like, start paying attention. Otherwise, we wake up and we're up here. You know, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta do this. To live in the moment with intention is probably the biggest purpose of life. Not I have to do that, I have to do this, I have to achieve that. To live with it intention in this moment is the biggest purpose of life. Because if we are able to do that, then we'd be much happier as people, families, and I think we'd just be more tender towards each other. I think recognition is the most challenging piece. And people have different milestones as kids. We walk, we run, we fall, we bicycle. It all happens at a certain age. Some of it is just milestones. We think it stops in childhood, the milestones, but no, as adults too. Some of it comes with age, understanding that I need to be more embodied in order to find more joy and pleasure and all those things. Some of that comes with life experiences. Some of that comes with ill health. The recognition is probably the biggest part. Once you have the recognition and people realize, sometimes I start my clinic sessions when we have a lot to go through with just visualization for like 2 minutes or just boxed breathing for 5 minutes. You just acknowledging what is it that you're needing in this moment before we move on to what do you want to do. Doing comes later. We try to focus on the being. That's why my clinic appointments are like 35, 45, 1 hour. The least I've probably done is like 30 minutes, but because we try to incorporate that as much as we can in the clinic. And then I give people, you know, if this was helpful to you, what are some other things that come to mind that, you know, is it walking in nature? Is it yoga? It's different for each person, you know, and that's their journey to find what it is that helps them embody. One of my patients, it was making frames for art projects. That was his embodiment practice. That was when he was present intentionally with purpose in that moment. It's very different for each person. It's a good question. Thank you for asking.
Coming back to the body, when you go through a life transition, whether that is entering perimenopause, postpartum, or being post 60s, whatever that is for you, you have a new body now. You have to rediscover it. It's a process. And I feel it's very hurtful for a lot of people that we keep having this idea of getting your body back. You have a new one. You need to discover your new body and befriend it.
Yeah. No, I love that you said that, right? I think that there is so much of conditioning. The first half of our life, we're just conditioned, and the other half, we're just have to decondition. It's unbecoming. It's not about becoming, it's unbecoming sometimes. There is no going back. I got this analogy during our Zen fellowship, and they said it's not like a rubber band, like, you stretch it and then it's supposed to go back to where it used to be. But then you miss the gift. It's actually like a ball that's bouncing forward. Think of it as like the next stage, next season. For me, the one word that brings it home to me is curiosity. There is so much labeling and judgment going on. My patients come to me with, I have a diagnosis of this, I have a diagnosis of that. And I say, we're going to keep all of that at the door, and we're going to bring you here, and you tell me how you feel. You tell me what's happening in this moment and what's happened. You tell me your story. I don't care about the labels and, diagnosis. That's because we created all those things to make it easy in medicine. Like, here. I'm not saying it's not necessary. Sometimes in complicated illness, of course, we need diagnosis and labels. But, then that takes away from the curiosity of this moment, this body, this experience. It could be totally interesting and new if we could have the curiosity. Am I saying getting old is for faint of heart? No. Getting old takes a lot of effort and also a lot of curiosity in terms of, like you said, this is my new body. What is it calling for at this moment? Rather than saying, I want it to be where it used to be the other day. Yeah, that's a very, very nice point.
Getting old takes effort. Most people don't want to get old. Hearing that it takes effort to work for them.
I know, right? I hear you. Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe I'm coming from a different culture. I think in India, as we grow up, there is this sense of, as you grow old, you're almost a gift, to yourself and to the people around you, and there is such a wisdom and value to that. The experiences that you've lived and seen. I feel like people become more tender as they grow older and more capable of loving and holding. It's a very different perspective on growing old compared to in the West. It's the inner life, I feel like, gets ignored in the West sometimes. We're just like, how do I look? How does my body look?
And it's so weird because it's a how do I look almost as in opposition to how I feel. Like you will wear very tight clothes, not because you like them, but because it's supposed to look to the outside better.
What's your inner life calling for? I wish there was more of focus on our inner lives and what it's calling forth for each individual rather than the judgment, the labels, and what is expected. So true. So true. Yeah.
When it comes to sexuality and the body, I feel like a lot of it is a process of continuously fishing for, this is not mine, this is not mine, this is not mine, like taking out whatever was put there by somebody else. It's a constant reminder that you didn't want it there, so it shouldn't be allowed to live there. And sometimes you can take it out, but you can say, hey, I see you, but you're not going to dictate my choices now. Yes, all this shame about how this looks, I understand where it's coming from, but do I agree with it? No. Okay, so set it aside. Don't let it dictate. I got such a yuck from a post I saw with someone that's saying like, hot girl summer, if you're trying to be sexy or something for the summer, come work out. Excuse me.
Yeah. No. It takes so much self-awareness, right, to know that piece. I think some of the biggest transforming lessons in my life have come from relationships. And knowing myself as an individual versus knowing myself in relationship and how I live relationally, that's a whole next level. Then to live in relationship to the community and our culture, it's very complex work. Kudos to you that, you're doing this work with people. Yeah, important work.
When the sex comes up in your office,
it's not enough. It's probably one of the things that, unless we intentionally dig for it, is not volunteered. Now, sometimes perimenopause does bring it up, right? That's a big shift and change, and people notice it. Even for menopause, andropause for men, they do notice physical aspects of it. Not so much the mental, emotional pieces of it. In my mind, that's a bigger piece for a lot of people. And sex itself is more than the physical ability, right? The sex itself is a manifestation of trust, embodiment, and connection. To have all those things aligned is hard for many people, and especially going through busy lives. I wish, it's something that more people felt comfortable about bringing it up. And somehow in long-term relationships, we're kind of normalized. Not having sex often is like expected. And it might be for some people that might be the case. And but for some others, not. I wish we had a little bit more conversations around it more intentionally. Good question. I'm going to make that a little bit more note in my practice now moving forward. We ask a lot about how's the connection, joy and pleasure and all those pieces, but specifically, people don't bring that up.
Yeah, I often say something along the lines that it's about getting comfortable with the discomfort. Yes, talking about it can be absolutely awkward. You're naked, bumping bodies with somebody else. There's like sticky weird stuff. And yeah, it's fine for it to be awkward. It's fine for it to be strange. You can grow that discomfort. Sometimes your erotic self trying to stretch. To me, it's like doing ginger. Find your edge where you can feel it, but you're out of force. You're not hurting, but you're doing something that is out of the ordinary. You don't need to feel fine and dandy, completely open. We're all gonna struggle with certain things. That's part of what makes them so interesting and so like enriching for our lives. You're expanding yourself in some way. You were saying like all these other examples of meditation, like sex, that's sex for me. That's a time when I realized, oh, I'm not thinking about anything right now. Like how amazing is it to have your mind just empty? That's my portal to it. But learning how to do that and getting to practice that in other ways of your life. Like I tell people to set up a reminder on their phone to take a 1 minute break. Just 1 minute. Oh, yeah, I cannot sit down for 20 minutes. Then don't.
Yeah,
You don't
it's not for
have to.
everybody. How do you ask about sex? Teach me.
Well, I think it's different because people who are seeing me are seeing me on purpose to talk about it in some way, shape, or form. I usually start the session asking, where would you like to start today? And give people the chance to jump right in or give me a backstory and ease into it. There is always things that I know what I'm looking for, depending on what they're looking. But they already have that permission because they are seeing a specialist. They know it's gonna come up like, in some way, you know. I start with asking them what is it that is happening, why is it a problem to them, and what do they wish to see. And I start from there. The things that I would want to know is, do you self-pleasure? How do you do it? And things like that. If you're in a couple, who initiates? So you like the sex you're having. If the problem is porn, it's not a bad thing necessarily, but is there something that you feel you're missing? Is that something that you want to be real? Are you just scrolling, spending more time scrolling and you just hitting the dopamine center in a different website? What are you actually doing? I try to give lots of detail to help people slow things down. This real time is so fast that if you slow it down, you just, okay, I hear it now. But real time says, okay, this just happened. What was happening? How did your body feel when you were losing the erection or right before? What were you thinking about?
Yeah, this was wonderful. I loved it. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for taking the time. I would love to chat again and get into the nutrition, gut, and things like that. That's not my area, but I love hearing people talking about it.
Yeah, it would be lovely. Awesome. Take care, Tina.
Nice to
Bye-bye.
meet you.
Bye. Namaste.